Just a couple of closing remarks, my part of the conversation, take it for what it's worth. You know, I think you started to get into it a little bit there at the end about what you said, Bob Ray, about where does this concept of race come up from? I looked it up in the dictionary today, and it said a group of persons related by common descent or heredity. That was one definition. Any traditional divisions of humankind. And then lastly, an arbitrary classification of modern humans. And I think that's kind of where we're living today. I mean, it's feeling arbitrary, and it feels a bit 19th century. It doesn't feel 21st century. There's new models that are taking place, and that's what we're trying to understand and to do. Now, we talk about media today, and let's be honest, okay? Media, you are not going to watch media. You're not going to read the books. You're not going to read the stories. You're not going to read online if inherently media doesn't have a sense of drama. Robert said it, the best stories sometimes are crime stories because there's dramas. There's good guys and there's bad guys. And the media understands that, and they kind of play on that. Some people say, well, they may play on our stereotypes, they may do it, but there's inherently something that I'm going to pay attention to. The old line that the TV guys don't like me saying, but it's true. If it bleeds, it leads.
Say it.
Okay? So we're trying to understand the media and trying to understand how we can get to where we want to go through the media, because the media is not going to do something just because we tell them to do it. Okay? Money doesn't do things because we tell money to do it. We create new models, and out of those new models, people start to come to. Now, I'm an advertising guy by nature, and I learned that we all see thousands and thousands of brands every day. We see thousands of images every day. And believe it or not, I'm sorry, but we're not reading as much as we once did. We're looking. So guess what? We kind of make snap decisions visually very quickly. That's why Dr. King's challenge about the content of the character versus the color of our skin is so important. Because someone said a race has to do with the color of skin. And so it's easy to start to create this drama around that. And what happens are brands are made. A brand like Nike, a brand like Starbucks, a brand like being black, a brand like being a mayor, about being gay. Whatever the term is, a brand is created. And over the years, that's what's in our mind. And that's why we make decisions. Do we make the right decisions? Most of the time, not. But we do it. So how are we going to kind of think through this? And I took some notes and some of the learning that I got from you guys today. First of all, we've got to recognize our legacy of racism. We've got to understand that this is an important part of institutions, whether the Dallas Morning News, Fort Worth Star-Telegram, the City of Dallas, the Dallas Police. And I will tell you this, I got a lot of questions about apologizing for the death of Santos Rodriguez. A mother of Bessie, I don't have any clue why this city hasn't apologized for that.
That's right.
There's no excuse for that.
No, it's right.
And on behalf of the citizens of Dallas, on behalf of the Dallas City Council, on behalf of the Dallas Police Department, we wholeheartedly apologize for the death. no excuse for his death, an alleged petty robbery of a 12-year-old. And if we don't understand the mistakes we have made as institutions and as a people, we're never going to get to this more complex stuff. So, all the city council people are with me in that decision. Now, the second thing we need to do, for me, is to move from a calcification of classification to recognizing the differences within our difference. We think that everybody, and you said it, Pastor Britt, that everybody that's conservative is conservative, everybody that's liberal is liberal. Well, I'll tell you one thing I learned as mayor. It is an unbelievable spectrum. Going from weird colors to bright colors to three-dimensional colors. And for us to not talk about the diversity, last night, I was at the 10th anniversary of the Latino Cultural Center, okay? And the diversity in that room was marvelous. And it was around culture, in arts, and people. And then I went to the Latinos police officers, safety officers. And they were very different. And I said, wait a minute, you're all Latino, right? You're supposed to all act the same. They're not. Okay? These are public safety officials, and these were artists. They just happen to be Latino. And if we don't understand the differences amongst our differences, we all look like white people are all racist, and ethnic minorities are all worse.
We need to celebrate.
And that is not acceptable. So we've got to do that. 3, ma'am. 3. We, as leaders, need to take responsibilities of what we do to represent how we look to the public. Very important. One of the most disappointing commercials I've ever seen was from Nike. I don't know if it was Charles Barkley. It was really old school stuff. It was early in their stuff. When he said, I am not a role model. And it was like, you are a role model for so many things and so many people. It may not be fun to be a role model, but I'm a role model standing right here. And we all, in this room, have got to recognize what we do creates images that the media uses to create that drama. And the fact that President Obama has established a new image in the African American portfolio, we start to understand the differences amongst our differences. And that's so rich and so important. Lastly, I know this isn't going to be a surprise to anybody from me. Only way we solve this problem is through education. We need to educate producers. People should not be allowed to have these jobs if they haven't been in every part of our city. I don't know why the journalism schools in America are not teaching this sensitivity, understanding, and the nuances. It's all about truth. Well, let me tell you, there's a lot of versions of truth that you've heard tonight. And we've got to understand that in that conversation. We've got to educate those folks, but then we've got to educate our young folks. And what DISD is doing now and wrestling through, and we've got a wonderful trustee right over here at this conversation, is really the future. It's fascinating to me as I read a New York Times article the other day that we talked about, well, black performance. It's not black performance. And I've talked to you about this, Reverend Brett. I think it's poverty. It's folks in the poverty level, whether they're black or Hispanic or anything. We've got to stop that stereotype because African Americans living in a different socioeconomic standpoint can perform just as well as whites. And the same goes for the Latino community. And so we've got to start to understand this is a struggle between the haves and the have-not, not against the whites and the blacks. Now that's hard because we have to let up a crutch that and a help that we've had in getting this, but that's ultimately the last thing we need to do, and that is create new images and new models. And I hope Dallas does that. Now next November, we're going to be creating a national conversation about race called Dallas Faces Race. It started in Baltimore 2 years ago, San Francisco this year, and in Dallas next November, thanks to the Boone Foundation. People from all over the country are going to be coming. These are two-a-days for me, okay? All right? This is what we got to get prepared for that. I want us to get to the meat of this issue. We're not going to solve it all, but hopefully we'll get tougher and we'll get better ears and understanding through this process. So, thank you for doing the media. At Christmas, right at the holiday, when our kids come back from colleges, we're going to do one with you. Because I don't know about you, but I know young people think about things differently than me. You know? And we don't have enough under 25s in this audience today. So if we really believe about diversity like we say we believe about diversity, you've got to have young people in this conversation. So thank you all, thank you, and let's have a great weekend. Let's